We're joined now by Gary Miles, editor and publisher of the Detroit News. Gary, the Detroit newspapers this week, for the first time, began charging their readers for some online content. What does that change mean for readers of the Detroit News?
Well, I think for the most part, it means we'll be setting aside some of our specialized content, some of our most in-depth, some of our most unique stories, just for people digitally who are paying. If people are already a subscriber in print or the e-edition, essentially it's unchanged. They continue to have free access to all of our content. But for those people who have been reading online and not contributing to the cost of news gathering, we're asking them to pay a small amount every month to continue to get the full access to the Detroit News.
Now, we're one of the last newspapers in the country to go this route. We've always charged our readers for print subscriptions, but we've never really charged them for the same content when they read it online. Why is it necessary to make the change now?
Well, at this point, I think it's fair to say readers have always paid a significant amount for the most part. But 25 years ago, as you know, when we started DetroitNews.com, it was sort of seen as the future. There weren't many people online, so you were bringing them into a future way to deliver the news. And we've managed to maintain that as a completely free service for the 25 years since. But readers have long played, and frankly, a couple of centuries ago, played the most important part in the cost of news gathering. And it's only been in the last 150 years or so that it became highly subsidized by advertisers who wanted to reach those readers who we were reaching every day. So this, in some ways, starts to return print to being very reader focused. And I say print, but digital, the operations of the newspaper newsroom, to really be all about readers and trying to gain readers and to survive based on a revenue stream that's built significantly on readership.
Now, Gary, most of the content on our website will still be free. What will people get with their subscription?
Essentially, we will set aside some of our most in-depth and unique viewpoints, so some opinion pieces. Most in-depth revelatory type material will be setting aside for those folks. So breaking news and those kinds of things, I think people can still expect to read. The stuff that you can get many other places, we will make available to people for free. We want to do some of the significant public service stuff. If there's an emergency, we're going to let people know for free. You can still go to DetroitNews.com. But the stuff that, quite frankly, is most expensive to produce in so many ways is going to be the stuff that we'll start charging people for digitally.
We've heard over the years a lot about declining circulation, declining revenue in the newspaper industry. What we don't talk a whole lot about is the demand for news. And during this COVID crisis, during this time of turmoil in our nation, the demand for news has really spiked.
It has, and even then, we were humming along at 3 to 4 million unique visitors to our website every month, even before COVID. But now that's taken it up to 6 and 7 million unique visitors, which has been increases year over year for the same month of anywhere from 75 to 150% in terms of the visitors coming to DetroitNews.com since the start of the crisis. So I think in many ways it has reinforced the need for people to look for reliable, trustworthy information and to go to the sources they trust the most during this crisis. And of course, that's not the only thing that's been going on in this time period. Besides COVID, we've had the Black Lives Matter protests and other significant news. We had the flooding in Midland County, which is where I grew up, from the dams and the Tittabawassee River. So we've had some other significant news events in Michigan that definitely have played a role in the increased usage of DetroitNews.com. I should say that much of our COVID crisis coverage will continue to be free to people.
In other markets that made this change long ago and put their whole sites behind a paywall, what's been the experience? Do they hang on to their readers?
They really are. Our company, Media News Group, has consistently suggested that they have been surprised by the outcome. They've been surprised by the support of readers when they've had to make choices and try and determine whether limiting some content and therefore limiting some advertising availability would actually increase revenue through reader subscriptions, they have found that readers have continued to say, we want to support this news outlet in the major markets where they are. So I think across the board, obviously free gets more readership than not free, but at the same time, people are willing to pay for news. They realize what newspapers and other newsrooms do costs money to produce. It costs money to find out what's going on. It costs money to fight battles in courtrooms to make sure access and records are free, or not free, but that we can turn them out to people. So obviously salaries and the cost of news gathering have significant costs associated with them. So we found, I think, across the board that readers are willing to support the newsrooms that they know and trust.
Gary, whenever I speak to a group, one of the first questions I get from the readers or from the people in the audience is, what's going to happen to the newspaper? What's the future of the newspaper? Will there be a newspaper in 10 years? What's your answer to that question?
Well, I think this is a big challenge both for us and to readership, and that now is the time to support the news organizations that you trust. We have a very loyal readership at the Detroit News. In other words, we examine our statistics many times digitally based on not just how many people come to the site, but how long they stay on the site. And we see that we have a very loyal and interested readership that stays a lot of time on our site when they come, so they're not just reading one thing that they saw on Facebook and bouncing out. We've had a lot of success, and I think those are all good indicators that when people want news, they go to trusted sources. Certainly, there are outstanding bloggers. There's a lot more different journalism in the space right now that people can access, and as far as I'm concerned, the more journalism, the better. At the same time, there aren't many places that cover the Metro Detroit and Michigan region comprehensively like we do, and we try to do. And so I think that the future for journalism is strong, and the step like this, asking our readers to contribute to, our digital readers to help contribute to the cost of producing news, will really be a big indicator about how long newspapers do survive, because this is the big transition to digital. But I'm hopeful and encouraged because I know our readership is exceptionally strong and loyal.
So across the country, we're seeing newspapers or publications try different models. Some have gone to the nonprofit model. In your mind, is this the model that makes most sense?
I think a combination of models probably makes the most sense. Certainly nonprofit has great interest. There are limitations as to what a newspaper or a newsroom can do if it's nonprofit. I think some of those limitations involve editorial endorsements of candidates, which we've already always seen as a big component of what we do and what people look to us to do. So I think there are limitations depending on the model. Obviously, there are donation models in Michigan and elsewhere that also make sense, but they're also reliant or tend to be reliant on the charitable sector in terms of our foundations deciding that this is an important thing to donate to support. And that's great as long as they do. It's not so great if they have to turn their attention to other things. But I think a variety of models probably make sense. In all of them, though, readership support is going to be important.
So what is your message to readers on why they should support the gathering and presentation of the news they use?
If you want a trusted, reliable source, you have to support it. Advertisers increasingly aren't using digital advertising in the way that they did print. So they're either, going through social media or other aspects. If you want trusted and reliable, that costs money to produce. And absolutely, whether it's the Detroit News or some other source, and whether you want it by print or digitally, absolutely, subscription makes sense for you, and it makes sense for the news organization that you're supporting.
Gary Miles, editor and publisher of the Detroit News. Thanks for joining us on One Detroit.
Thanks, Nolan. Take care.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.